Well, good afternoon. I want to welcome you to today's episode of the Chimney and Fireplace Success Network at a special time, a special day, and a very special guest today. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to let Cheryl and Brandy tell you a little bit about our guest today and why they're looking forward to this broadcast. So Brandy, why don't you start off with that?
Okay. Today's guest is Tommy Mello. He is the owner of A1 Garage Door. My first experience with A1 Garage Door was before I even met Tommy. We had some garage door problems here I live in Kansas City. And so I was getting on and looking at different reviews, and they seemed to have really good reviews. And so I called. They were able to get me in same day. The gentleman that came out to our house, I would say, is probably maybe mid-20s. And I was just so impressed at how professional he was. He was very knowledgeable, and he was even able to upsell me on all kinds of things and tell me like the lifespan of my garage trinkets. I don't even know. He was speaking another language, but he definitely was convincing and able to sell me on it. So we got more that day than just our garage door fixed.
Correct. So Cheryl, what would you say about our guest today to talk about him a little bit?
Well, I've watched Brandy a lot, how she talks about him. I've watched a lot of his podcasts. It's going to be a gentleman that if you don't get something out of this hour or so, you just weren't watching.
That's it. So stick around with us. We'll be right back, and we'll have Mr. Tommy Mello, and he's going to be delivering some gold nuggets with us today. And there's the man himself, Tommy Mello. How you doing today, Tommy?
I'm good. Glad to be here. It's a Monday, so my CFO says it's the best day of the week. That's not my perspective, but I do like Mondays.
Hey man, I woke up this morning. I got my garage flooded. I got doing a class today, so it's been a right hectic day, man. But you make it worthwhile. So here's the whole thing, Tommy. These two ladies, after hearing you on our group call when you spoke to my coaching clients a couple months ago, have been really excited to speak with you and ask you some questions. So we're going to give you some questions from all three of us today as we go into this. And one thing about Tommy is we're going to talk a little bit today. This is a book that Tommy published. I'm going to put a link into our broadcast today that you can send there. And Tommy, you still giving this book away for shipping and handling, I believe?
Yep, absolutely.
There you go. So Brandy, I'm going to start off with you. You've been looking forward. You're all over this, and you are a customer of Tommy Mello. So what would be the first thing from you?
Well, I guess, and I've read your book, but I guess, Tommy, especially for like the listeners, can you kind of go back and tell us what you were doing before garage doors and how you got into garage doors? Because a lot of the people watching are chimney sweeps, and no one grows up saying, I want to be a chimney sweep. And I imagine that you didn't grow up saying, I want to own a garage door company.
Yeah, it was a great question. I'm from Michigan, so moved out to Arizona when I was 16. And being from the Midwest, we do pretty much every kid does the same thing. We shovel snow and mow lawns. That's what we do to make money. So I started a landscape company when I came to Arizona, learned how to do drip systems, stuff like that. And I had a buddy of mine when in my early 20s, I was bartending, I was flipping cars, whatever I could do to make a buck. But it was really all me. It's what I realized when I went on vacation that I didn't make any money. And so I knew how to hustle from being a kid. My dad owned a transmission shop. My mom was a realtor, but basically ran their own businesses. And I had the opportunity to start painting garage doors for a buddy that was answering phones at a garage door company. And he goes, you know how to paint garage doors? And I said, no, but I'll learn. How much does it pay? And it was $100 per garage door. And I got to the point where I could paint 10 doors a day. I do it all Saturday and then all day Sunday. And then when I meet up the different garage door companies to collect the samples, because I started painting a lot of other companies as well, I saw that there was more money in the business than I had thought. So me and another guy started a business. 3 years later, me and him went separate directions. And that's how I'm in the garage door business today. I've done everything in the business. I've been in the warehouse. I've done the accounting. I've worked on taxes. I'm still involved a lot in the marketing side of it. But there's nothing that I haven't done in the business, and I've been doing this since 2007.
Okay. So,
Wonderful.
Cheryl, go ahead. Cheryl, what would be your question to Tommy?
Well, what I do in CVC is basically the hiring. So I've watched a lot of your hiring videos, and you do some great things. What makes you go so far in the hiring process that you do?
When COVID happened, I started really looking at our employees, and I thought a lot about it. Really started reflecting a lot in the beginning of COVID. And I just realized that if I want to build the company that I want it to be, it's going to be because of the people. And I always say, always be recruiting, always. Create a great environment for the employees and a great way for them to make money by hiring their friends and try to give them a career rather than a job. Really focusing on that heavily right now. And then I'm also working on just right now we're getting about 100 to 200 leads a day for new employees, and it's all through social media. And we're working. I'm looking for those little factors that help become a funnel to basically kick people out. I don't want to waste our time with people that aren't going to be dedicated and be A1. We call it A1 from day one for life. So, I've looked at every single part of the flow, and we're always trying to sift it more and more and more to get those better gold nuggets. Because I do believe a good employee for me, whether it be a CSR, a technician, an installer, they're $1 million producers. That's what I look for these days. Is each one of the employees is worth $1 million a year. Now they're worth a lot more than that to me because they've all become part of my family too. Yet this weekend I went golfing with one of the guys. They're not just a number, but the wrong employee will cost you a lot more than I think most people realize.
Gotcha. So, Tommy, my question. When I read your book here, The Home Service Millionaire, and folks, I just put a link up to this if you like this book, and we strongly recommend it. But at the top it says how I went from $50,000 in debt to a 30 million plus business in 7 years. And I know since this book is published that you're past this $30 million a year mark, and you've got some really high goals as far as the earning potential of A1 Garage Door. But how did you do that when you're sitting at $50,000 in debt and turn that into a multi-million-dollar enterprise? What was your secret sauce, brother?
Well, there's two things you need, and you'll hear this a lot. I need more jobs or I need more employees. So if you learn how to build, and I'm a big whiteboarder, I wrote down, how do I get to $1 billion in revenue? So I wrote down 1 billion, and then I said I need 2,000 technicians to do $500,000 a year, and that would be $1 billion company. And then I said, shoot, I'm going to need a training center. I'm going to need recruiters. I'm going to need full-time trainers. I'm going to need an LMS. So I wrote down everything I was going to need, and I got with my management team, and I made them believers. Not Justin Bieber, believers. I made them believers. And we figured out exactly what we needed to become the company that we wanted to be. And I got, it's funny because I'm leaving town on Wednesday to go visit a shop that's much bigger. It's an HVAC shop in California, and he's acquiring companies all over the country. And I still am sitting back and learning exactly how to get to, we're going to do 75 million without any acquisitions this year. You throw in the acquisitions, we'll do 100 million. And that's 1/10 of my goal. And, it used to be 100 million was my goal. And then I set a bigger goal. And unless you could start thinking outside of the box and really figuring out exactly how to obtain your goal and measure it, you're never going to do it. So it's a lot of numbers. We did a lot of things right so far. And I'm standing on the shoulders of giants. If you look at my staff and my team, it's the best staff you could ever want. And they all believe, they all want more. They're all hungry. And, as long as I don't say no to them when they want to hire more people or need resources, I think the growth will continue. I think it's even going to get stronger.
That's it. So that had to be some scary times, I'm sure. So, Brandy, Your turn. What's your next question there?
Well, I have a lot of my own questions. However, Lee Roth is watching. And Tommy, I know you know Lee. I think he was probably maybe the first one in the chimney industry to introduce you to us. And he said to ask you about your buyer's guide.
Yeah, that's a great question. So there's a great book called They Ask, You Answer by Marcus Sheridan. And I became obsessed with the book. And he also wrote another book about videos. But we created a really sexy buyer's guide, and it shows everything you need to know about your garage door, what questions you should ask, how much should I pay, what kind of wood, my house faces west, I don't like noise, what can I expect with this, what do you guys do to ensure that customers are happy, all that stuff. So if you go, and I don't mind sharing it, I can show you guys what we do, but the buyer's guide lives in HubSpot, and it's got clickable links onto the website. And we could actually score the potential garage door buyer, the homeowner. We could score them in a different direction to know where they spend time. And if you read that book, if they ask you answer, you'll learn all about it. And it's very, very interesting because if you got somebody looking at, discounted garage doors, the scratch and dent stuff, it's probably not going to be a great ticket, maybe not even a high conversion rate. But if you got somebody that spent about an hour on the buyer's guide, and the chances of them converting into a sale goes above 80%. So the longer they spend, the more time they spend on that page, the more they're clicking around. And you've got to get the customer to agree that they're going to take the time to go ahead and view that, because it's going to save time and it's going to get them a lot of knowledge. I always tell people the garage door is 40% of your curb appeal. It's the smile of your home. We trademark that, and it can save you a lot of money. People don't even realize that the garage door that could automatically close itself if you got the right opener. An insulated door will save you a fortune in the summer on your electric bill. So, yeah, the buyer's guide has been a game changer for us, and we keep making it better. So it's one of those things that you're not done with it. You got to keep building it and keep current with it and make sure you got the latest trends. And that's what we're doing.
Sounds great. So, Brandy, that was a Lee Roth question, and I know you prepared. And so, actually, I was going to ask that question myself. So, what's your next one on your list? Because I fear that wasn't fair to you after you prepped. She preps for these broadcasts.
So along those lines, I know that you have a training center. And so you recruit people from all over, and then they go to your training center. How many of those people miss the plane and don't get on the plane?
That's a great question. We've been actually really paying attention to who we don't want to make it onto that plane, because that's when it becomes expensive. You're in your own market. I'm trying to make sure you're sober when you show up to work. I'm trying to make sure that you're excited, you're asking great questions, you're engaged, you're not on your cell phone on Instagram the whole time. So we do that first month, and I was on the phone for a financial quick check on Friday, which actually lasted quite a while. We go through the same meeting every week. And I said, guys, I'm just so big right now on recruiting. That's my number one thing, and it probably will be for a long time, is how do we make great technicians and great installers and CSRs and dispatchers. And so we started thinking about it, and I said, Mike Bailey's our regional manager outside of Milwaukee. And he goes, Tommy, the best way to do it is that first month. That tells everything. I know everything I need to know about that person the first month. And so we started making sure that we're not sending guys to Phoenix unless they're amazing. They've showed a good work ethic. They've shown a lot of stuff. So I'd say we're dropping a little over 20% don't make it. The first one is a ride along. There's a whole ride along form. They ask great questions. They show up on time. Were you able to look in their car to see if they're organized? Do they smoke cigarettes? We ask a million questions on the ride along form. We say, is this somebody that you think is A1 from day one? Are they the real deal? Would you want this guy working next to you? And they know why they win the game too when these future opportunities come up. So, right now, we just said the other day, trying to go through the questions, Jerry, faster, but this is a great question. When we do a ride along, you're limited to how many people you could hire to do the ride alongs. So they got to do a ride along. They got to wine springs. They got to do all these things when they're riding along. And we said, which guys wouldn't we want to do ride-alongs with? And we made a list and just said, this guy, he doesn't believe 100% in A1. This guy, blah, 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 blah. And so I challenged everybody. I said, my goal here by the end of this year is to have employees that we don't mind. Any one of them could do a ride-along. Because my top markets, any one of the guys can do a ride-along. They all believe in the culture. So it's really tough when you've got a group of guys, maybe like 10 in another market, and you say none of these guys are going to talk good about the company because they, some of the guys say that I don't like the dispatcher. Some of the guys say these leads aren't good, whatever. But they don't talk really bad about the company, but they're not the type of guys that you'd want to do on a ride-along. So there's a lot there that I just went through, but it's all very, very important because I'm obsessed with hiring right now. So hopefully we ask more questions with that because I think it's so important to build a really strong company. It's not have all your employees walk out. A lot of people were in line here telling me they were ready to take pay deductions when COVID happened, and they were trying to give away their vacation time to other employees that needed it. So meant a lot to me.
So Cheryl, hiring's your avenue of what you do within the company. What's your next question for Mr. Mello?
Well, basically, it's on the hiring, but it's also once you have hired somebody, you go to such great means to get them there. So when you're training them into the sales part of it, what do you think makes them fail, or how do you notice that they're going to fail?
So that's a tough one. I look for their competitive attitude when they're going through training. Do they want to win? One of my core values is aspire to be number one. They're the second one. And competitiveness. A lot of the best people here, they played sports and they understand that you have to practice 5 more times than you play the game. Whereas most owners and businesses, they just throw you right into the game and you never practice again. And you wonder why you don't get better. So we really spend a lot of time to make sure that they're comfortable, eye contact, body language, tonality, and we had them repeat it. We started recording them. I was once at Next Star Networking Group, and they've got 900 HVAC, plumbing, electrical companies, and they get in this room and they all talk to each other and they record it. They look at their mannerisms and they look at different things. They do personality profiling. So we've stolen some things from those guys and just really started recording. And I want you to be able to pass any objection. Hopefully the presentation we do gets rid of most objections, but we don't sell enough financing. We're only at about 5% of our jobs are financing. I want it to be over 40. So that's part of the thing. I talked to the trainers last week and I said, guys, we need to work really hard. This 4 weeks of training when they fly here is going to be all financing. We don't call it financing. We call it promotions. We're going to talk a lot about financing though. We're going to talk about how to get through these different objections. I'm selling the house in a year or whatever those look like. And so we've really got to dedicate time, and you've got to create a course in the LMS, and you've got to be testing. And the other thing I know is the key performance indicators. Within 30 days, if you don't hit a certain KPI, we send you back to Phoenix for a 1-week refresher because you want to get that early. You shouldn't wait to realize someone's not very good at sales. If you wait 6 months, that probably costs you a fortune.
Thank you.
Gotcha. Tommy, every time we talk and we're on camera, I see all those books to your right, and you've accumulated quite a library over there. In fact, I think I've got a couple in your stack there, some Cheryl books too.
Yeah.
But I'm looking right now over your left-hand shoulder, and it says, I will be a billionaire. What is that poster right there?
There's a couple of them, but these are just affirmations. So you want to read them out loud? Because I can't read upside down.
Yeah, it says, I will be a billionaire. I will be the best mental and physical condition ever. I will be happy for what God has given to me. I will feel fortunate for the team that supports me. And I will possess consistency, accountability, discipline, and focus. And, Tommy, one of the things that I know about you is how effective you are at using coaches and mentors. And, you divulged a little secret to me, which was that's why you like to do podcasts, because you get this subject matter expertise to advise you on those things. What's some of the leading mentors and people that you've dealt with in your career that have really made a dedicated difference?
Oh, man, there are so many people, business owners in general, but Al Levy came onto the podcast and we met up for lunch. He's local here in Scottsdale, and he helped me a lot with putting together a better org chart. He wasn't the guy that invented the org chart, but he definitely knows how to put it together. And then he taught me about something else called a depth chart, making sure that different people could run different departments if they needed to, if someone's on a vacation, or like he says, if they win the lottery and they decide they don't want to work here. And then he really helped with the manuals. But I've had a lot. My buddy Keegan in Florida has helped me out a ton. He's a real big guy on financials, and he looked at some of them one day and helped me make some critical decisions. A lot of guys at Service Titan, Tom Howard. He's an amazing guy. He's helped. Dan Antonelli, he helped me rebrand my trucks, and it's clean. And since we rebranded, we're doing amazing. A lot more simple, keep it simple, Simon type thing. But if you do all the research, you read a book on somebody, you get to know everything there is to know, and you go visit their business, hopefully you got a ton of questions to ask. And hopefully they're very, very detailed questions, because a lot of light bulbs go off when you ask the right questions. And the question is, how quick can you implement it? It's the speed of implementation when you learn all these secrets. They're really not secrets, but like the other day I was on a podcast with my buddy Chad Peterman, and he goes, Tommy, one of the things that I just learned about is getting the significant other involved, inviting them to dinner and buying them flowers and saying, hey, you're part of the family now too. And I thought, wow, that's absolutely incredible. I'm a big fan of inviting people out to dinner and going to see what their relationship looks like. Because if it's healthy, it's a lot easier than a toxic relationship when you get off work and then to come into work the next day after, whatever that looks like. So Dave Ramsey talks about that, but really bringing in the kids, getting the buy-in of the significant other. And I know that kind of went off, but there's a lot of people that have helped me out through the years. And there's about 10 people I could call for anything, and they'll give me great answers.
Yeah. And it's amazing. You brought up Al Levy right at the first. I don't know if I shared this with you, but Al is actually our guest on Friday afternoon this week at 4 p.m. Eastern time. And we're really looking forward to it. I know Al, Brandy, and Cheryl both looking forward to doing that interview just like that. But I think they like this one better. You want to know the truth. So, Brandy, what's your next question there?
Well, first, a comment. Yeah, I did listen to when Al Levy was on your show. And one of the things I really liked that he said is hire more than you can handle, because that's something we're really encouraging our CVC clients to do, is to hire more than they can handle. So I really liked that. One of the things that we've been struggling with in my own company, though, especially since COVID, is employee burnout. And I was wondering if you've struggled with that in your company. And if so, how do you kind of combat that?
That's a great question. And the fact is that you've got to create an environment that's built off of hiring. I said this the other day in one of my meetings. I said, guys, there was about 40 of us on the call. And I said, I know it's tough to hire somebody because all your time, energy, and focus gets veered off of your work. And here you are showing somebody, maybe questions that are easy to answer, but I think the mentality that I have towards that question is, if you've got too much going on to keep up, then you've waited too long to hire the next person. And one of the goals that we've tasked ourselves with is creating a 6-month org chart. With all this growth, what does our org chart look like? And who do we need to hire? And my marketing team needs 3 people. I had 2 people on my list. Adam had about 5. Brian had 3. Luke had 5. And we said, okay, when we get off this call, I'm going to go ahead and build the perfect ad. Actually, I'm working on it right now. So we're looking at building a really, really good ad. And I said, I want to make sure that the mission and vision are portrayed in these ads. And I want to come up with how much they're going to get paid. So their whole pay structure. I want to make sure it has a manual. I want to make sure we create a depth chart. I want to make a video on each one. I want to talk about what KPIs are we going to be looking like. I want to take a calendar from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., Monday through Friday, and understand what their day looks like hour by hour. I want all these things done for every one of these positions. And I want it all stored in one folder on the drive. And I said, I want to do this by the end of August. So I set a date and I said, this is the meeting we're going to have to check in to make sure everybody's doing it, so they don't all wait till the last minute. But I say burnout happens because you're not hiring, and all of a sudden you have to hire. And then it gets really bad because now you've got all your normal work to do on top of training somebody. But I said, guys, we get the right people, your jobs become easier. And don't ever feel like you're not going to have a job, because you guys are so critical to the growth. Let's continue to work on this activity all the time. And I know how hard it is to hire, but just take your time. We'll get the right people on board, and your job will become easier, because burnout will happen at the rate we're going if we're not doing a lot of hiring.
Got you covered. So, Cheryl, what about you?
Okay, so you've done your hiring and you had somebody that came on pretty good. You've got somebody you think's in the thing, and then they move to underperforming. How do you deal with that?
So one of the things is we've got a scorecard for every department, and I feel that some people don't get enough attention. So we are doing an hour a month. We created a really nice scorecard. We call it the triangle of communication, the CSRs, dispatchers, and technicians. That's one of Al Levy's terms. And what we focus on, there's a lot of other people that need to be communicated with, but those are literally, probably 85 to 90% of the company. So they know they know exactly what's going on at all times, those three positions specifically. And we are making more and more time. I think I was on the phone earlier with a guy in Texas, and he said, I think all this private equity stuff is going to blow up in a lot of people's faces because they're growing, buying, but they're not thinking about culture. And I think culture means a great deal of communication is happening. In fact, one of my managers the other day, I said, hey, I feel like the installer culture is slipping. I've gotten a couple of emails from guys. And he said, well, how so? I said, well, take out a pen and a paper, and I want you to write down 10 things that you'd want to work for. Communicate well, easy to talk to, lets me know how I'm doing, provides constructive feedback, wants to invest in me as an individual. And I came up with a list myself, and I said, this is what we need to do. We need to create this within ourselves. We need to have questionnaires and basically an internal net promoter score of how we're doing. And I feel like just communicating and the performance improvement plans. And a lot of times they don't even know. But when they see the numbers, and then you got to say, listen, let's talk about why this is happening. We know this is happening, but what is it? Why aren't you selling doors? Why aren't you selling bottom rubber? Specifically, we've got to be able to internally find out what they're not doing. And then we need to get them the training to do it and then hold them accountable. And that's the biggest difference, I think, is we actually do that. We let our people know where they're at. We listen to all the phone calls. We talk about the enthusiasm on the call. And every department has its own KPIs, but I feel like the hardest part is knowing that they're messing up and being able to have a one-on-one with them. There's a great book called Fierce Conversations. There's a book, too, that I'm reading. It's called 120 Difficult Conversations to Have with Employees. And it tells you how to approach them. So this one's called the Queen Bee Syndrome, the best approach, when to approach, what to say. It's a pretty cool little book, too.
Gotcha. And Lee Roth asked a question, and Lee has actually visited with you, and he works with you just like he works with me. But it's about compensation, and you are a promoter of performance-based compensation. So would you mind sharing with the audience, why is performance-based compensation your preferred way of compensating your people?
Yeah, they got skin in the game. It's because I don't want them to walk in here one day, ask for a raise because of tenure, because they've been here a certain amount of time. I'm a big fan of competition. And I think that if you could find out the 3 or 4 things that motivates an employee, 3 or 4 things that matter, and those are called your key performance indicators. But for example, our CSRs, you look at the booking rate. So their booking rate, if they're over 90%, they make $7 a booked call. But then we add $1 if they're on a it's called a time variance, that the phones aren't ringing as much. So that's to get them to take on shifts that aren't quite as busy. And then we've got their attendance. And then we do one on, we actually have a consultant that came out, and we wanted to embrace failure. So when somebody makes a mistake or something's not done correctly, they come to us and we reward them. So instead of calling them errors, we call them opportunities now. and we actually give them a gift card to point out that opportunity, and hopefully we can fix that in the process. I think a lot of times the process has an issue, and we've been able to identify that. So that's performance pay. I want everybody on this call to get excited when their person or employees make a lot of money. And when it's because of salary or hourly, typically that's not fair because I'm not on hourly or salary. I'm on performance pay. If the company fails, I don't make any money. And I want to get excited for every single person that makes a ton of money and say, I remember a technician called me and he said, "Hey, I made $3,000 this week. I had a great week." I said, "Dude, that's awesome. That's killer. That's exciting. You earned it." And I do this one thing all the time. I draw 3 circles right next to one another, and I put you, A1, the customer. And so I draw this little 3 circles, and I say, winners go home and look in the mirror when they win, but they also look in the mirror when they lose. A lot of times losers that have a lot of issues, they say, "Oh, the dispatcher doesn't like me," or the CSR didn't do their job properly, or the customer was cheap, or whatever. So I try to tend to tell people the outcome of your actions is everything to do with you, and that's how you're getting paid. And you've got a lot of skin in the game, and we can both win together, but I need you to feel the pain if you're not doing the job correctly. So I've got CSRs that are in $25 an hour, and I've got other ones that make minimum wage that fall off. We created an atmosphere for winners. So I could advertise that some of our CSRs are making $25 an hour. Do you think I'm going to get more applicants than the guys that have got $16 an hour out there? You know what I mean?
I understand. And so, I just see where our friend Al Levy liked our broadcast today. So Al's out there listening to us right now. So that's great, Al. We're looking forward to having you on Friday afternoon this week. So Brandy, what's your next question from your end?
Well, I think I'll tie into that a little bit. So do you have, and it's kind of a loaded question, do you have any employees that make a base salary plus performance? And then does that, and how many hours a week does your average employee work? And then does that vary by location? Because I know you're kind of all across the United States now, and cost of living is different in each area.
So we mostly have, pretty much every manager gets a base plus a performance. And I've made a lot of mistakes on figuring out the performance pay because I didn't anticipate this kind of inflation and our costs that have more than doubled since the beginning of this year, which I don't mind if they hit their goals, but they got to know it's an environment that we're always going to make changes. We're testing these things out, and they've got to understand the company needs to make money too. So I did something pretty cool to get a lot of the top people engaged in equity that I'd always recommend. And I'm going to get even more people involved with that. But, everyone needs to know the goal that we're working on. As far as the guys that work city to city and state to state, for the most part, if the market does better, they make more. If it is a nicer, bigger, more expensive area, typically those people are buying more expensive garage doors, and that means there's more market money going into that market, which means they should be able to make more money. I don't know if that necessarily answers your question completely, but the main amount of people are in Phoenix, and it's a pretty good market right now. Maricopa County is the #1 market for equity in the United States. So crazy things going on here, and we got to stay competitive with the pay rates, and it's crazy, what we're paying, but at the same time, these guys, they earn it. I really do believe that everybody here that's making great money deserves it, and I'm never mad about it.
Yeah. And what's the average work week for a technician and installer? How many hours are they averaging a week?
It's so there's a lot of downtime when they go pick up the doors and whatnot, but I'd say 45 to 50 hours. And trust me, between my department over there with that does payroll, and they figure out the pay structures. We've got a couple of attorneys that are looking at it all the time. I'm a big fan of you use it or lose it for PTO, and you can't do that in Arizona. There's a law that you can't do that. And I'm like, because I want everybody to take a vacation. I want them to enjoy their families. I don't want to give them all this PTO that just adds up for 10 years from now before they quit or before they retire or whatever it looks like. So a lot of it has to do the pay structures now. You want to make sure to get a sign off from a lawyer that's an expert in this matter is all I would say, especially depending on the state. California is a tough state. New York, Chicago, Illinois is a tougher state. Texas is a little bit easier state. Florida is a little bit easier. But Florida, there's wind loads that you deal with. So there's a lot of other stuff to deal with there. But yeah, that's a great question. It's the pay structure. Most people here, I want them to be able to make six figures pretty easily.
Yeah. Tommy, in line with her question, do you base your performance base for your technicians? Is it based on net or is it on gross?
So we take the material cost out of the cost of what we pay them on, and we actually, to make it true performance instead of commission, because I don't like that word commission. Some bad things happen at the end of the month. If guys are straight commission, they might sell somebody something they don't need. Now, I'm a big fan. No one really even needs a garage door. So when people say that, I kind of get annoyed. They didn't need that. Well, they wanted a nicer opener. They had an option and they got it. But yeah. Completely forgot where I was on that.
The question was, are you paying on net or gross?
So sales less materials, and then you take out the taxes. Okay. So they don't make any money on taxes. And then we also look at a lot of other things, like if they don't leave enough yard signs out, they get deductions. If they don't get enough reviews, they get deductions. And one of the guys came to me a couple weeks ago and said, dude, I think this is crap. He goes, just because I'm not putting out yard signs. I go, you got to ask the customer to leave a yard sign, and that's tough for you. So on a monthly basis, they've got a whole scorecard. It's kind of like when you were a kid in school, you had all your different classes and your attendance rate. We have all that stuff, and they make money based on that. So literally you take all the parts cost and all the material, the parts and materials, and then you take out the taxes, and that's how they get paid.
Right. And I wouldn't call that commission. I would agree with you. You're paying them on performance because it's more than just sales. It's them following, getting reviews, that kind of stuff. So Cheryl,
that's what we wanted. Yeah.
So Cheryl, what's your next question?
Well, you ran into reviews. I'm just going to segue off that. So I see that you take a lot of advantage of good reviews. And so with that being said, can you elaborate on that a little bit? Because we're always pushing our companies to get more reviews. And is there a golden number out there that you think is what you need to go for?
Yeah, no, not necessarily a golden number, because as your company grows, they're going to grow. But when you're smaller, you got a big advantage. It's the David and Goliath mentality. I think that when you're small, you can take more time to ask a customer and walk them through it. Listen, it means a lot to me that I give you 5 out of 5 service today. And I say 5 out of 5 quite a bit. And because I'm looking for that 5-star, and I want one on Yelp, I want one on Google, I want one on Nextdoor, and I want one on Facebook. And I want to do a video with you just saying that I did a good job, if you don't mind. And we got to set them up with the expectation that's what we're going to ask them for. And hopefully we do a great job, get all 4 reviews. I also like the BBB. I also like Angie's List. Now it's called Angie's. I also like Home Advisor. There's not a lot of places I really don't like getting reviews. And then another thing to think about with reviews is getting employee reviews on Indeed and Glassdoor. And I think a lot of times business owners care way too much about what the customer thinks and not near enough is what the employee thinks. So getting some good reviews on there. And, the way to stack the deck in your favor is go to employees that you know are happy and ask them to do it, rather than sending out a blind survey if you maybe don't have the best culture right now. Because every time, we've all been through a tough time. And right now with COVID and supply chain and really hard to find employees, maybe you don't have the best culture. So go to the 10 people that really love your place and see if they'll leave you a review. Just give them a phone call and then send them the links. Make it as easy for them to do it as possible is all I would say.
Yeah. So Tommy, my next question was, when you came out of this 50,000 in debt and started building this enterprise of A1 Garage Doors, somewhere along the line, someone got your attention of the importance of numbers and importance of KPIs and importance of inspecting what you expect. Who was that person that got that message through to Tommy Mello?
Well, I'll tell you this. I was very, very frustrated with the past CRM. And when I learned what Service Titan could do for me, which is Ara and Vahe are the founders. Al definitely played a role in these. Ellen Rohr was a big factor. And that's because Al introduced me to Ellen, and we coached with them for a while. But it's data in, data out, right? You got to make sure you're studying the right numbers that are accurate, because the numbers don't really mean anything if they're not valid. And what I found as I'm trying to buy companies out here, Jerry, is there's a lot of businesses that their data is not very good. They don't understand their key performance indicators. They don't know call tracking numbers. They don't understand conversion rate. They're not tracking the right stuff. And most of them, believe this or not, have not figured out their taxes for last year. They're no clue of what they actually made because they're keeping a lot of cash. They're not depositing some of the cash. And there's a good book called Built to Sell. And I think people need to start thinking, if I were to sell my company, no one planned on COVID. There was a guy that was going to sell his movie theater business, and I think he was getting $100 million, and it completely went bankrupt. And all I'm saying is your business should always be ready to sell. I mean, we're not perfect, but we're working on getting audited. We're going to do an internal audit every year with one of the big 4 accounting firms. And banks always want to know, are you guys financially reviewed or audited? And audited is the best thing you could possibly be. And it keeps everything high and tight. And it keeps everybody sharp and making sure that no one's stealing at the same time. And I'm not worried about that. I'm more worried about just making sure we're doing everything to the best of our ability. We had a switch a few years ago, probably 2 years ago, to accrual accounting. And we switched we just switched over to Intact in the beginning of the month from QuickBooks, which was interesting. That was about a $60,000 endeavor. And QuickBooks, it just doesn't do as much as we would need with over 10,000 transactions a month. So, you got to always be growing too. But it's a CRM is the biggest thing, is getting the right data. And then what is that data telling you? And hopefully there's some big takeaways on a daily basis that you could do. Like we do a round robin for our VoIP service, that the best person at the booking rate gets the call first, and it's a lag. And if they don't answer it within a ring, it goes to the next person, but it hits all these people simultaneously. And we've got 2 backup call centers now. We've got 4,200 call tracking numbers that we could basically see the problem with something right away. Technology is the key to all this stuff, by the way. It's really, really important.
You just mentioned going to a new bookkeeping system, and I know you use Service Titan, and most people use QuickBooks. What does this new bookkeeping, does it interface with Service Titan okay, or do you have any issues with that conversion?
Yeah, so QuickBooks and Intact, which is a Sage product, they both work with Service Titan. It's a direct API. It pulls the data. We were doing kind of a workaround, and the data wasn't as clean as I would have liked. So Intact's going to be a huge, huge deal for us. I think we're light years ahead of most companies, but I still think we could do better. There's a good book I read. It's right here. And this guy, Leland Smith, very, very successful. He was in a room with Ken Goodrich and Ken Haynes and these guys that are doing hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars. And he said this book changed his life. It's called Double Your Profits by Bob Pfeiffer. Double your profits in 6 months or less. And I got to tell you, as far as being a controller, understanding the numbers, this book will change a lot of people's lives. I'm not trying to endorse another book. I don't know. The guy was written in the 90s. So I don't even know if he's still with us, but I can tell you it's a great book.
Yeah, well, that was interesting when you said you had switched that, and I'm sure Brandy's listening real close for that for the clients that we work with, and she works at their office operations. So, Brandy, what's next on your list?
What would you say is your average retention rate of your employees?
See, that's a tough one, and we do monitor that. Our HR department does. She wasn't really happy, but when you're hiring anywhere from 30 to 40 people a month, we built our payroll, the performance we pay gets the environment of people to quit, because if they're not doing great, they're going to quit. So the culture, I'm not exactly thrilled at this. That means we didn't do the best job of hiring and training, but right now it's hovering around 25%. But if they're here for more than 90 days, they're typically going to stay. So that gets down to the single digits, but we want that fall off. We don't want to put our time, energy, money, and our focus and all of our attention into people that might not be here in 6 months. So we really create the environment that we're okay with that. We're okay with attrition. And I think that's the environment you have to have is, people might think you're training your competitors, but you're only getting the best. And it really makes a big impact when you get to, my goal is to get to 50 technicians a month. And then our ratios, that's going to mean about 6 dispatchers and another 15 call center reps. So, that you're hiring now 60 to 70 people a month. You're not going to have every single person stay, and that takes a lot of infrastructure. But there's another good book called The Ultimate Sales Machine, where he talks about how good your systems need to be to even handle that many employees.
Got you covered. So Cheryl, your turn.
Okay. Back in my day, a career was a lot of years. So in the situation you're in, I know where we're doing it, the limit of time, but as a rule, what do your people consider the longevity of a career? How many years?
That's a very interesting question, because we've been studying a lot of about millennials do, and I would consider a career 15 years. The difference is most people, it's a physical job. So once you hit, I'm 38, I wouldn't want to be in a garage right now like I was in my 20s. But just because you're not going to do that job doesn't mean you're not going to have a different position in the company. So I think the people want to stay, hopefully working here till their retirement. Don't have a ton of people near there yet, maybe a few. But ultimately, my goal, my mom and stepdad retired. They worked for me up till a few years ago, and they did an amazing job. So it really depends on the person and their goals. But ultimately, I don't see anybody leaving anytime soon. Now, there might be an opportunity down the line that I bring on investors, and I want them to feel good about that. That's the thing that I think changes things up, because now they're answering to more people other than me. So yeah, that's what I would say, 15 years.
Okay. So Tommy, I think you are a proponent of recruitment bonuses for new employees, and also for paying your present people if they bring you a new hire. Am I correct in that?
Yep. $1,500.
$1,500 is what about a recruitment bonus? Are you paying a recruitment bonus to someone that applies?
So, like, for an experienced technician, I got a $2,500 bonus that we're working on. I don't pay people that we're bringing in through an apprenticeship. They're actually making money for working here. They're not paying like an HVAC school $20,000. We're giving them a career that they can take anywhere in the world. And we're giving them the tools, and we're paying for the flights and the food and everything. So I don't think they're getting rich the first few months when they're training, but they're definitely not. There's no money out of pocket. So it's a great place, because CSRs can make more working here than anywhere else that I know. Technicians can make great money, and we'll train you how to do the job. And if you're experienced, I think those bonuses help. But, a lot of people go, are you guys hourly or commission? And you could always tell the people that go, commission's bad. If you sit there and you looked across the table from somebody and said, would you rather get paid on a performance where you could have unlimited earning potential, or just a stable salary or hourly? And a lot of them will say, well, I'd be open to performance, but we have a family. And if I said to you, I don't have anybody that makes performance that makes less than $70,000, is that still something you're worried about? because some companies, they can't make the phone ring. Some of them just don't have the infrastructure to keep them busy. So I understand that's a valid question, but the videos and the things that we use online, we've got 5 non-negotiables. One of them, drug test, background check. You got to have a clean driving record. Got to be able to come to Phoenix for four weeks, and I forget the 5th one. But yeah, I definitely think performance is the key to success, and everybody out there should probably raise their prices. I think way too many people are low priced.
Yep, got you covered. Okay, Brandy, this is your last hit. We're running out of time, so you got one more. Give it your best question for time.
Okay, so and please don't take offense if you're doing this. You can be honest with me, but there's something slimy happening in our industry where chimney companies are going out and pilfering from other chimney companies' employees. So they're reaching out to other companies and trying to get their employees to come work for them. Is that happening in your industry? Do you guys do that?
Yeah. No, I go everywhere. See, the thing is I won't go in someone's parking lot and try to get their employees. But well, I'll tell you what we do. We geofence all of the major supply houses. And if somebody might be running their own business, they might want to sell to us. A lot of times we've had owners go out of business and come work for us. So I'm not saying it's better over here in the grass is greener. I'm saying do your research. We lost a couple employees to a different shop not that long ago. And to be completely transparent, it was probably a good thing because there were a lot of work. But I get most of my employees over 90% have never had any experience in the industry. But I do want everybody to know we're always hiring. And when they see our trucks, they see our billboards, we will hire other employees. I'm not going to go, hey, call everybody you know over there and try to steal them. But those people are leaving your company most likely. It happens a lot in HVAC. Garage doors, it hasn't happened a whole lot. But HVAC, because we have a crazy summer and they need workers with experience. And they'll give them a $10,000 bonus to come over. So I don't know a lot of industries that don't have a little bit of that going on, but I don't build my whole marketing plan or my recruitment plan on other employees. I build it on what we're able to create and help train. But I definitely don't think I don't look at another business that if they hire one of my employees, like they're scumbags. I mean, these employees have a right to work. And if they go to another company because something didn't work out here, I can't get mad about it. So it's a tough question if you got someone trying to steal all your employees hanging out of your parking lot or something and just giving your people bonuses. I think that's probably, and I hate to do this because I don't love lawyers, but that's probably a lawsuit waiting to happen.
Yeah. I think what Brandy's referring to is a lot of times we're seeing people going to training seminars and trying to recruit other employees at training seminars. It may be at distributors, that kind of stuff. So I think there is a fine line of what is good and what is ethical and then going too far. I mean, maybe being open to other people. So Cheryl, what's your best question you got on your list you want to share with Tommy?
I don't really have a best one. We could talk for 2 or 3 hours on the hiring thing. The one thing I want to move just slightly off, if it's okay with everybody, when you brought branding up a while back on one of, I believe, Jerry's questions. When is it time to rebrand your company, or what's the pitfalls of doing it?
I think it's got to be a clean message. The name of it needs to be good. It's got to be super clean. And here's what's involved. It's your vehicle wraps, your yard signs, all your marketing materials, and definitely the wrap trucks. Oh, and the website. If I can't look at your truck and know exactly what you do very, very easily, and the color scheme's really, really good, then you're losing a lot of money because branded searches are better customers. And if your name of what you do is not in there, you can't be like Google because you're not a search engine that's worth, trillions of dollars. So I always recommend for smaller companies, whether it be chimney, garage doors, make sure you put like A1 garage door service. If I could go back, I don't know if I would have done A1 because there's a lot of other A1s out there, but there's A1 barbecue sauce. I mean, there's A1s of everything because it fell first in the phone book. But, it's got to be clean, crisp, and I got to know what you do by just a quick glance. I see a lot of people, they put everything that they do onto their truck with stenciling. And I'm like, we know that you fix broken garage doors. We know that you replace them. Like, they could have all these things, and it just doesn't send the message of what the brand is. I want people to look at my trucks and see them everywhere. And maybe they don't need my work today, but when they go to the Google and they search for garage door repair, they see A1 and they say, I know that company. That's who I'm going with. Or they search A1 garage doors right out of the gate.
Yep. So my last question for you, Tommy, is in the service business today, this COVID and shortage has caused a really big issue, which is the availability to buy a work truck. This is a big one. Are you facing that in your business where you cannot get new trucks?
Yeah, we've seen it coming. Dodge called up about 2 months ago and said, we're going to cancel your order of 120 trucks, which that hurt us a little bit. But we work directly with Enterprise, and we pick up 2 or 3. She'll send me an email and say, hey, go look at this email right away, and I'll pick up 3 trucks. I'm buying ones now with 20,000 or less on them. I've had to switch to Fords. I mean, tough. What do they call it? Desperate times call for desperate measures or something like that. So, we are having issues. I'll tell you that. So usually I was turning in my trucks at a certain mileage. Now we're not turning them in anymore, at least for the next 2 years, I think. So it's going to be a little bit more of a mechanic bill, but at the end of the day, it's better than not having a truck.
Yep, gotcha. Right. That's what I mean. A lot of people, in fact, one of my clients out of Oklahoma just sent me a message today, said he's got a truck in New Jersey, got to get shipped to Oklahoma. And that's becoming a common question that people cannot find what they need. So, Brandy, you got a quick question? We're about to the end. You got a quick one you want to ask?
Well, since we're at the end, I don't want to waste the time on a question, rather just to say, Tommy, you're always so generous with your time, and I really appreciate it. You're always so willing to give any information and answer any questions we have, and you're not being paid to do this. You're just giving of your time, which I know you're extremely busy. So just to let you know that we really appreciate that, and you definitely have a customer for life here in Kansas City.
Yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Cheryl, what about you? Because neither one of you have asked the one question that you said you wanted to ask Tommy. So
okay,
Cheryl,
here I go. And it's come, I have gotten a half a dozen, well, more than that, emails. How much Red Bull do you drink a day?
Oh, yeah. Not a lot. I work out. I got the trainer. I got these new protein shakes. But, people are always like, dude, how do you get your energy? I mean, I do have a lot of, I got a million supplements. These are called apple cider gummies. But I don't know. I just always have a ton of energy. And
well,
today
I do admire you.
Thank you. Yeah. It's like, look, the other day I was in a meeting Thursday morning. I'm like this in the meeting. Everybody's just falling asleep. And I go, all right, I'm up. Wake up. Everybody up. Stand up. Do a couple jumping jacks. I'm like, this meeting's got to have some fire to it. And everybody, you could drop a pin in that room when I got up. And I was like, all right, guys, let's get excited. Let's talk about this. And I'm loud and I'm looking at you. I'm asking questions. And I think you got to be like that because otherwise it goes in out one ear and out the other. So,
yeah. Well, Tommy, I want to really thank you for your time today. Every single time I'm around you, have conversations with you. You're just a wealth of information. And like Brandy said, you're willing to do this. And I think the most remarkable thing is you're willing to share your ideas, share your concepts where they can help other people. You don't hold it back of, well, that's top secret, that's proprietary, and your own. Let's share, when do you do your home service podcast? Is there a certain day of the week, or do you just roll those when you've got a notion to go online?
Bree handles all the stuff for me. I have a whole team, Bree, Hannah, and Gianni, and they pretty much make it work. But I'll have certain days, I'll have 3 podcasts that day. I'll have certain weeks that I don't have a podcast. So it's kind of when the schedules line up for everybody. podcasts are the only thing I don't really move around very much. I've canceled a couple, but usually we try to go live now, so it's kind of a big deal. And you know, podcasting is changing the game. You know, one of the things I wanted to mention is I made a goal about a month ago that I want to be the biggest influencer in the home service space. So what I'm becoming obsessed with is Instagram and TikTok, and not from a perspective that I'm on there, but more that you can make a huge impact in an industry just on Twitter. I mean, Donald Trump ran the country on Twitter pretty much. So there's about 9 places I've identified, and I've been taking courses on each one of them. LinkedIn, email blasts, how to be more efficient at that. There's software tools out there that tell you who have the best videos on TikTok. I mean, I'm learning all these things, and it all comes through having a really good base on each thing. Like the podcast gets 30 to 40,000 downloads a month. That's just one thing. YouTube is amazing. So I'm studying all this stuff. I'm having the time of my life doing it. And I'm starting to get a lot more of just, we got a video of me like now every meeting, all these different things. I've got 2 more video guys we're hiring. It's just an interesting thing that we're working on here.
Yep. Well, brother, you are an influence for a lot of people. You are a positive influence. You share a lot of great information. And I just really want to thank you for taking this hour out of your time today. And I will echo that, because when I want to set you up, I know that Bree is the one that has to do the scheduling. That ain't a Tommy Mello function. Bree and the other people at your place, you got a really great team. And that's one of the key things I think that I could say about you, Tommy, is you are a visionary that knows how to delegate and have people that implement your thoughts. And I think that's what's going to make you a great leader. And I see that you're going to reach that goal, and you're going to be that billion-dollar company one day. So we appreciate you being with us today. And if you joined us, this has been the Chimney and Fireplace Success Network broadcast. Appreciate you being here. Tune us in Friday afternoon when you get one of Tommy's mentors, Mr. Al Levy. And what would you say about Al, Tommy, before we go away?
You know, he's the most organized person you're ever going to meet. I mean, he's a man. He practices what he preaches. He's not going to sugarcoat it. He walked into my office and said, you know, I could have stole all your inventory with your own forklift and you wouldn't even known about it. And he won't sugarcoat it. He's going to tell you exactly his thoughts. And I appreciate that about him. You know, he's just, his car is always perfectly clean. He does not pull into the spot. He backs into the spot. He's a man of routine. And when he says he's organized, every single thing he does is just clockwork. And he worked on those manuals and built an amazing foundation that everybody should listen to. And I think you guys will really dig it Friday. And make sure you tell him I said hi.
Don't worry, I will. And he's on there right now, I think, still watching. So, Tommy, we appreciate it. And we'll see you guys on Friday with our guest, Al Levy.